Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, guys, this time the walls actually did close in. Trump spent yesterday in a courtroom fighting for his New York business life after already having been found guilty of business fraud in a civil case. Now, because of that ruling, the only question now really for Trump is how severe the punishment will ultimately be. And make no mistake, he is really fighting hard. His defense team announced yesterday that the former president does intend to take the stand to testify in his own defense. That's going to be wild. At stake is control of some of his most iconic properties, including Trump Tower itself, in a case that cuts to the heart of the myth of celebrity billionaire Donald J. Trump. It all started back in 2019 when Trump fixer Michael Cohen testified to Congress that Trump routinely lied about the values of his properties and other assets. When he was trying to look good for, say, Forbes magazine, or more critically, to prove he had enough collateral to secure another loan from a bank, his assets would magically skyrocket in value. When he was trying to minimize a tax bill, they would instantly deflate. These comments sparked an investigation from New York's Attorney General Letitia James under a broad statute that gives her the power to investigate business fraud. Some of what she found was quite something, even for Donald Trump. Trump had claimed that his own personal residence was 30,000 square feet. In reality, it is less than 11,000 square feet. This led to an overvaluation of roughly $200 million. One would think that a real estate developer would know the rough square footage of his own home. In another instance, Trump pretended that apartments, which were in fact rent stabilized by law, were not in fact rent stabilized by law, leading to their value being overstated by roughly 700%. Another Westchester County property was valued by Trump at $261 million, in spite of the fact that it had been appraised 4 different times at a value of $30 million or less. Over a 10-year period from 2011 to 2021, prosecutors found some 23 instances of fraud in reporting asset valuations, each more or less as brazen as the examples that I have just cited. Now, Trump defenders and Trump himself have pointed out that in the judge's initial finding of fraud, he ruled that Mar-a-Lago should have been valued at only $18 million. That amount does seem extremely low, a point Trump himself picked up on in comments yesterday. Just take a listen.
They have one property that's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times what this judge put down as a value. Put down a value $18 million, and the property's probably worth, could be anywhere from 50 to 100 times more than that. And a lot of those numbers could even be low. We have other properties, the same thing, so he devalued everything.
What he and his defenders failed to mention, however, is that 18 million number that actually came from the Palm Beach County assessor when determining how much taxes would be owed on the estate. So which is it? The low amount that was used for taxes, or the more than $1 billion that Trump is now claiming the property is worth? As recently as 2020, Trump's own company said that they actually agreed with the Palm Beach County assessment. So he was either lying then or he's lying now. As is the case with all of these instances, he picks whatever suits his interest in that present moment. Now, the defenses from Trump's team in the first phase of this trial were a bit of a shit show. They tried to argue that none of the banks involved were hurt, point which is irrelevant to the case. They also tried to argue that a blanket disclaimer rendered all of the financial statements worthless and that they should have been seen as such by any lenders. These arguments were so baseless, the judge actually financially sanctioned Trump's lawyers directly for continuing to offer them after they had already unequivocally been swatted aside. In a side of the quality of his representation, the Trump legal team apparently forgot to check the box requesting a jury trial. So Trump is now stuck with his fate resting in the hands of a judge who he apparently absolutely hates. But however bad the legal team's arguments were, Trump's own arguments were way worse. He outrageously sought to justify the property valuations by claiming he could get a Saudi buyer to pay whatever he wanted for these properties, so they couldn't possibly have their values inflated. A shocking admission from a former president who already appears to be thoroughly compromised by Saudi money. So none of that worked out for Trump in the first phase of this trial. Now, the question is just how big the sanctions on Trump are going to be. Letitia James is seeking $250 million to reflect her estimate of the gain he achieved through this fraud, an amount large enough to cause real financial hardship and potentially force even the sale of some assets. Already, Trump and his sons have had their New York business licenses revoked, which will make it difficult, if not impossible, to continue running the New York real estate empire, a dagger to the heart of Trump's whole business identity. Now, Trump says this is all political, and to be honest with you, in a sense, he's right. Before he ran for president, he was basically granted the blanket immunity that elites typically receive in American society. They can brazenly lie, cheat, and steal with few, if any, consequences, as long as they're part of the club. Remind me again just how many bankers were jailed for destroying the global economy. Now Trump has lost this elite protection card and is facing the sort of scrutiny and, yes, consequences that you or I might expect to face. In other words, the problem here isn't that Trump is being sued now, it's that he got away with so much for so long, just like so many other elites. And it's that so many other wealthy people get away with the same and worse every single day. For all the understandable focus on Trump's many criminal indictments, this civil trial, it really cuts more closely to the heart of Trump's public brand and his business. How much of the Trump reality show was reality? How much was just a show? A wildly successful branding exercise that helped launch him into the highest office in the land. It's also the first time that any of the attempts to sanction Trump through impeachment or the legal system have really had teeth. The first real blow to the Teflon Don veneer. The first indication, as I said, that the walls are kind of for real closing in. The first sign that his seeming invincibility may be as much of a mirage as his 30,000 square foot Trump Tower apartment. And that's what this really snuck up on me.
Hey guys, if you want to see what I had to say to Krystal's monologue, not just this one, all of them, going back to the very beginning, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com.